My name is Joe with ShopWare and Cimco, and today we'll be going over a brief tutorial of setting a work offset with Cimco Probing, as well as in-process inspection on a toolpath part file in Mastercam. Just as a quick disclaimer before we begin, Cimco Probing can only be used once our post department at ShopWare has enabled the functionality in your post. If you'd like to explore any of the things we cover in this video, feel free to submit a request for a demonstration on our website at shopwareinc.com. So to start off, Cimco Probing allows the user to define a probe in Mastercam based off your exact specifications of your own probe. We do this by defining a lollipop mill in Mastercam and setting it as a static tool. We'll go over a quick example of this in our Toolpath tab. We'll go into our Tool Manager, and we can see that I have a Renishaw OMP 40 probe defined. If I right click and say Edit Tool, you can see I have all the parameters set for the profile of our probe. You can then go into Finalize Properties, make sure the tool number and length and diameter offset looks good, and go into Spindle Direction, and we can see that is set to static. So at this point, we're ready to probe in Cimco Probing. So we'll look at an example of setting a G54 offset right off the bat. Inside of our Cimco tab, you'll see our two C-hooks here. And we're going to go into Cimco Probing. You'll see we have three different options. We have workpiece alignment, workpiece datum, and workpiece inspection. For our example with setting any work offsets, we'll go into a workpiece datum, and we'll use the rectangle outside path. So you'll see the probe that we looked at before is going to be in our list. We'll make sure we select that before we go into our cycle tab, and then we see right click for selection. I'll right click and look at the three examples that we have. We have from stock, select lines, and select chain. I have a piece of wireframe going around the top of our stock here, so we could technically go off of a chain, but we'll use from stock for this example. So we'll select this, make sure our plane looks right, let's say OK. And you can see that Cimco Probing will automatically use the extents of my stock that I set up in Mastercam to generate that path right off the bat. So we can go ahead and then create or adjust our safety or clearance height here, but it looks like we're in good shape. Our part's fixtured at Z0, so we should be good to go at this point. I'm going to check mark, and then we look at our toolpath here. After a quick back plot, we can see that we're touching off on each side of our probe and then updating G54 at that point. We'll then go, after we set our X and Y here, we'll go in and say workpiece datum once more and then say a 0.1 axis. This is going to be setting our Z height. Making sure we select our probe, we'll go into our cycle tab, right click and select the point. Go ahead and select this point, say OK for the plane, and then adjust my clearance height as need be. So I'm going to just manually raise this, and you can see that this values are moving inside of here. What's nice about Cimco Probing is you can actually scroll your mouse wheel inside of the window here, and it'll adjust your value that you have in the window. So I'm going to add in a safety distance here as well. The yellow is going to be where we wrap it into, and then the blue is going to be where we start feeding, just like you might be used to in Mastercam. And we can see here that our work offset that we are updating is G54. If you are using any of the extendeds, we have those available as well. So at this point, we can say OK. And then within just a few clicks, we've got all three axes of our 3-axis setup set with our probe in Cimco Probing. So at this point, now that we've had our X, Y, and Z set, Cimco Probing will actually allow us to clock in a 4th or 5th axis if your machine supports multi-axis. However, we will go over that in a future video. So now we'll look into our second example here, now that we've got that set. And I'm going to just move my arrow down just a bit. And we're going to look at this toolpath group with all these helix bore operations. So these are going to be looking at these 4 holes in here. So what we're going to want to do is, after we're done machining these holes, then we're going to go ahead and with the probe and go ahead and inspect that. And then if we need to, we'll do a little bit of remachining. So on that front, we'll go back into our Cimco cycle probing, and instead of workpiece datum this time, we're going to be looking at workpiece inspection. So you can see I have a diameter inside and outside, 4 points, as well as 3 points. For this example, we'll just use 3 points. So I'll go ahead and call this path up. And then same as before, we'll select our Renishaw probe, go into cycle probing, and then select the arcs that were available here. So we'll go ahead and select each one that we're looking at. We'll select this guy here, this guy, and finally this large one. So at this point we can see these values are going to be all different, and they are highlighted on the screen as we go to each point inside of here. We can choose to not do some of these conditions on some of these. It gives you a lot more control over that with each point. For this example, we'll just take a look at this top point here, just for time's sake. So if we zoom in a bit, and maybe go into a top view, you can see that we are touching off in 3 points, and we do have, it's pretty much sorted out by each angle. So what we can do, if we need to avoid any fixturing or any chips, anything like that, what we can do is edit that angle. And let's say I wanted to go to like a 180 for some reason. We have that, completely have that opportunity to do that. But for this example, we'll keep it at 120 just for sake here. So in the measuring height, it's going to go down 300 thousandths. And we are going to be updating the tolerance as well. So when we're getting into the remachining side of things, we're going to want to check this box for our if-then conditions. And then Cimco Probing is going to give us 3 options. We're going to have one for scrap, one for remachining, and one within our tolerance here. So if the part's scrapped and we check that on the probe and it's verifying that, then we're not going to waste any more time with any machining, so we'll just go to the program end at that point. If we're going to be remachining something, then we're going to go to, like, let's say if we're a bit undersized, we can go to a specific operation in our list. So I can then choose my operation based off of the toolpaths that I have in Mastercam already. So if we take a look at this, our first operation is going to be, looks like op 14 here. So we'll go into here. Operation 14 is going to be the start of our toolpath group. And then if it's within tolerance, if it's within the tolerance that we expect, then we're just going to continue on with that program. So we can see that we are updating based off of some tolerancing here, and we do have some tool feedback. This is going to be an automatic value based off of the tool that we're selecting here. And like we said before, this has to be done for each one of the arcs, just to give you a little bit more control over that. For time and example's sake, we'll say OK to this. And we've got our toolpath here. So after a quick back plot, let's maybe slow that down a bit. It's going to be doing our final hole here. And then that's our path here. So once we post everything out with this, the logic is completely built into the program already. So we can say G1. I'm not going to post out everything quite yet. But then we see that it opens up direct in our Cimco editor here. So our label at the top, we have something called a restart label here, which is going to, once we do our checks with the probe, if it finds out that we do need to remachine that, we'll update our tool offset and begin that program again. So using Cimco Probing can efficiently streamline your usage of your probe, run and check long automated part runs, and eliminate wasted time machining a part that ends up being scrapped in the long run. If you have any questions on Cimco Probing or would like to request a more in-depth demonstration, visit us on our website at shopwareinc.com. Thank you.